I'm going to go through a short video of what I've completed so far and what is the next step. It's been quite a while since I put up a video, obviously. I'm at this stage, I'm at the hangar. The wings are attached. The tail and controls are attached. I have the trim tab attached, and the elevator throws are set for up and down, and then the throws in the trim tab for they're set in a Garmin G3X. So some of the things I have to complete is vertical stabilizer tip is one of the things back here that I still need to work on. The closeout for station 11 back here. And I was just adjusting the flaps. They hang down a little bit because of the play in flap cables, but I was gonna set them up a little bit higher. Supposedly in the wind, when you're flying, it pushes the flaps up a little bit, but I'm just gonna set them up just a tad higher so they're a little out of the airstream. So then obviously the windshield, the boot cowl, the top or boot cowl or glare shield up here obviously needs to be put on. Most likely I'm gonna wait to get my engine so I can install the light speed ignition boxes on the inside there, make sure that wiring's correct. This back of this switch goes to the power select. I don't have my backup battery for the ignition in. I'm charging it right now. And that's gonna, for the left ignition, I'm gonna use that power select backup battery. The right ignition goes straight to the battery. And then a little bit different, I put an EarthX up under there. I can still get to it once the boot cowl's on. I have my master solenoid here, and I have my starter solenoid here. And the only hot wire, or actually there's really not a hot wire going through the firewall except for the alternator cable, which will go through this fuse, the shunt, and then into the cabin for the alternator. And then I'll have a starter wire coming off the starter solenoid through the front, and then to the starter, plus a grounding strap on my bus bar here, which has a matching bus bar on the inside for my grounds, which is connected to the negative. Most likely I'm gonna put 2 straps here to the engine, or maybe 1 strap from this bus bar, maybe 1 strap from the engine mount, like the plans show. I do have to, obviously, when I put the engine on, hook up all my sensor wires for all the different sensors on the engine, baffling and cowling, which is quite a task in addition to the windshield and skylight. So other than that, and a few small details, for instance, the brake lines, putting brake fluid in there, bleeding the brakes, wrapping up a couple more tie wraps underneath the seats to kind of get the wiring a little bit more organized. And I am gonna do a spoke tank here. Basically, I took out the big battery that the factory recommends, put the EarthX up front. That avoided the long power cable to the front. And then it left me this nice big space here. I've tried looking for a couple different tanks. Initially, I was using a small gas tank from West Marine. So this was my initial thought. Just this kind of fits in here using a strap. It's this space here. strapping it down in there. This is only a 3-gallon tank. Taking, this is a pickup line that goes at the bottom of the tank. It has a volume here as far as when you're filled up, and a vented cap. And then it basically goes around into the pump here, comes out the pump, and then I'm gonna run it forward underneath this closeout through here, up to the front, onto this fitting, and then this splitter that goes from AN6 down to, I think that's AN4, and goes to each exhaust pipe for smoke. Then I got to thinking, well, filling this up is a little bit difficult. May have to have a fill valve or something like that. And, strapping it in, and plus 3 gallons, once you get it in there, doesn't seem like that much. It's gonna be a hassle to get more smoke oil in there. So I ended up ordering a second header tank with the mounting material strap, 2 clamps, and the base and the angle that goes underneath there, plus 2 of these fittings back here, so I can have an AN6 pop off there. And so my thought is I'll have a fitting coming off this back. I might have to adjust this for this cap that's on here, or even maybe put the cap in front here, depending on how close to the closeout that is. However, I can put some standoffs here, move this back, that cap will be there. That cap isn't used for anything but to close off this tank. There's no purpose of it, except for trying to get your fittings on the inside through the cap, and then when you cinch that down. So I'll have the inlet or the outlet to the pump, still run the pump lines up through to the front, and then I'll have a second off the top, maybe on this side up towards the top here. And what that's gonna be is my fill area. I'll have a hose off of that, and I have a connector system that came with the smoke system that's used to disconnect. If you want to disconnect your smoke tank and pull it out, there's a quick disconnect. It closes off when it's disconnected, so there's no leaking. And so this has a panel here. Maybe I'll have a little door, or maybe the little tubing will come up through here, have a quick connect, and then I'll have a small electric pump off a extra 12-volt battery that I happen to have because I'm not using the battery I bought for this plane. So that makes it perfect to pump the smoke oil straight into the smoke tank and have that quick disconnect. The other thing I do need is a vent line. So I'm gonna have to probably put a small, maybe even one of those fittings that use for the fuel level display there, or tube, and just use one of those small fittings somewhere, maybe on the top, depending on how close the baggage should close out here, and then put a fitting for a vent tube, possibly using just some extra, maybe pitot static lines or something with some sort of vents on there. So that is the next project. It's mid-November 2021. My engine hopefully is within a month of arriving. I ordered it November of 2020. So I've been waiting exactly a year since I put my deposit down on my engine. So it's the Titan IO340 from Rands that Continental manufactures. But once I get that, opens up a lot more work here on the firewall forward area. Most of this stuff's already done in the front. Oil coolers all set up already. I just need to hook up the hoses to the baffling. The baffling's probably gonna be a little tedious, and so is the cowling. But once that is completed, hopefully it'll take no more than a couple months once that engine arrives. I'll go through the switchology real quick of how I have this system set up. I think I might have put out a short video or posted on this, but what I have is a backup battery in the mid position. That's a 3-position switch. And that backup battery sits right under here just for it's an integrated backup battery system. And it's just integrated into the G3X screen, the ADAHRs, and the magnetometer and engine data, I think, on that too. I'm not positive about that. So that's the backup battery. So you can put it on that before you start, let everything warm up, get your GPS location on your screen, load up your flight plan or whatever you need. And then you turn on the main battery, which turns on the solenoid there next to the battery, the EarthX battery. And so we have the G3X on. We have everything connected on the main bus. I do have a separate avionics bus that I have a avionics master switch for. That'll turn on your GPS, your radio, transponder, and then a few other small things. ELT, GPS, transponder, and then a camera. I don't have the camera yet. That's going to go right there. It's basically going to look out the front, little backup camera looking out the front of the cowling, so you can see kind of in front of you in the blind spot up there. So of course I talked about this earlier. You got that would be your backup battery or your main battery on just the left ignition box. The right ignition box is going to be directly off the main battery. So the way you wire light speed up, because it's electronic ignition, is you wire it directly off the main battery. I'm not going through any type of bus or master switch or anything like that. It just goes straight from the battery, and it's kind of a weird setup where you have to, according to the manual, use a single conductor shielded wire, 18 gauge or 20 gauge, I believe, but I'm using 18. The shield carries the ground and the single conductor carries the positive. So at every switch and my circuit breaker, I have to jump the shield around as the wires connect to the circuit breaker switch. I have to jump the shield around that, which I'm just going to solder the shields together and put a couple layers of heat shrink tubing on that. I also thought of maybe using a solder sleeve, but I'm not sure if that will get enough solder in there with 2 wires together with a solder sleeve. I'd much rather just solder the 2 shields together and then use heat shrink tubing to hold the wires together. As far as lights go, I got 3-position switches here. I got straight up just nav, and then nav and strobe, and a position. Basically I have a beacon as well under there, blinks. And then these are the 3-in-1 RAN cells. So you got the white in the back with the strobe and red facing forward. For landing lights, I have currently lights that aren't working because they're going through my landing lights have kind of a wig-wag strobe feature, and I used lights from Amazon with I think this is from crazedpilot.com, basically a controller that solid wig-wag and that strobe feature, and if you put it up to the top, the lights go solid for landing. And I did not cut my front spar. I'm saving that. Maybe I'll do it. I'm also thinking about doing the Aerosport products wingtips, but these things look really good, the stock wingtips, and I did an okay job. Do have a little bit of a gap here, but nothing too major. Those are probably going to stay for a little bit. So I do have the front facing lights for landing and recognition with those cheap strobes. Bounce it to the landing gear. And I got a dimmer. I have some footwheel lighting that's blue. And then I have another connection that I'm gonna put light under here. And then an interesting thing just happened. My battery light just went on there. So I haven't charged my EarthX in a while. And it's getting to the point, it's volts 1 and it's 12.7 volts on my EarthX. And so I know that that is their lighting system. You have a pigtail off their battery, you put it into a recognition light or a indicator light, and it will light when your volts go to a certain level, looking like it's about 12.7. So, and I'm not sure if that's will eventually come on solid. So I'm gonna put the charger on that here in a minute. And then I got this is a blue light for when my fuel pump's on, so I know my fuel pump's on. This is the header tank low level light. So until I get fuel in the header tank, it's gonna be on. And then I have fuses and a couple selected circuit breakers. And now I'm on the backup battery. You can see that the volts here fairly low as well. And then all my other things not on the backup battery, my comm, my exponder, transponder, all that stuff turned off. This is only for backup. And of course I got my switches here. So I got trim, up, down, up. This is a GPS disconnect button, and this is a smoke switch. Cool thing about the smoke is I got a relay. So I turn the relay on so that energizes the relay, and then I press the button and the smokes will come out as I hold the button, let go of the button, the smoke turns off. So this is kind of because of the size of the smoke motor, I have to have a relay. So that little switch can't handle it, but it makes an added measure that I know the smoke's off and not just blowing out the back, wasting money. So I'll go around and just real quick. So I got a avionics side and then a main bus side. So I kept the main bus the same as the backup battery. So you got your EIS, ADAHRS. That's the backup, integrated backup battery system. And that is to charge it. It has that fuse there. EFIS, and then my start key, my trim motor. The smoke is 7.5 for the smoke motor. Interior lights, so all the interior lights, even though they're way less than 5, I just put them on a 5 in case I had more interior lights. My nav strobe lights, and then my landing lights are a bigger fuse, 10 amps, depending if I put the wing lights in or not. And then as far as my circuit breakers, my alternator circuit breaker, my fuel pump for my boost pump, and then my ignition, my left and right ignition is a circuit breaker as well. USB port that's only comes on with panel USB here. I put it on the avionics side and some other stuff on the avionics side. I'm gonna have ignition battery charged. This basically is a charge up my backup battery. When my backup battery is just waiting to be used if needed by flipping the switch, I'll have a separate wire going to this bus with a Schottky diode, so I don't back feed the backup battery into the main battery, and it will charge the backup battery, but it won't feed the backup battery into the main circuit. And that just keep it topped off when the avionics switch is on, which will be all the time when I'm flying. I do have a hot bus, battery bus is this center panel here. I have a USB and a socket, 12 volt socket. This is how I charge my EarthX battery, through this port here. It's protected by a 7.5 amp fuse right there, and once that's on, I can reach up and get it if I need to. And then the light, I don't have it plugged in for the overhead. I have a piggyback off that cigarette lighter, and it's a 3 amp piggyback fuse that goes up, and we'll have this light mounted there. This is kind of a cool feature. You'd make a white light, a red light, or off. Has its own switch, always hot, so gotta be careful not to leave it on, but that will give me a battery or a light in the cargo area if needed, without the master on. So that is it for now. Hopefully I can make more videos when the engine arrives, and I'm excited that I'm fairly close. More to come.